Hi, I'm Laura the Library Lady, and welcome to this episode. Today I will be talking about the book The Gardner. And this book is so special to me in so many ways, and it's by Sarah Stewart, and the pictures by David Small, and it is a Caldecott honor book. And Caldecott, the American Library Association gives out awards for outstanding children's books, so that's what a Caldecott is. And so let's jump right in. This is the cover. And I love this book for so many reasons. I just love the opening page before you get into the book. And you see there's a contrast because this looks like a city scene, and then you have what looks like a rural scene. So you're talking about setting again, and if your child lives in an urban or suburban area, you can talk about what it's like to live in a rural area and vice versa. And the great thing is this book covers both. The Gardner. So this book has an interesting format. It has a letter format, and it's set during the Great Depression. And it's special to me because even though all of my grandparents are deceased, they all lived through the Great Depression. And they had the kind of strength that we just don't have today. And their legacy lives on. And two of my grandparents were gardeners. And I love the fact that we have letter writing here because we don't write letters anymore. We Facebook, we Twitter, we text, we instant message, but we very seldom write letters or even send cards anymore. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I have a card from my grandmother who died in 2009 at 98 years old. And that card is from 1970. And it was a birthday card, and I still have it, and the fuzz is worn off. But that card is special to me because I know she went out to the store and looked at all the cards and chose that one for me, went home, signed it, wrote her love message to me. And even though I was so little, I had totally forgotten the card because I was so young, and I found it. And I have boxes of cards I've received and letters that I've received throughout my life because they're that important. I'm getting to the point now that I will throw away cards because I just run out of room. But anyone that sends me a card, I will keep that card for about a year before I discard it. And letters, I don't discard at all. So if someone writes or types me a letter, I have letters from the 80s and everything. They're in boxes because they're so special to me. So this is written in a letter format, and I love it because when you're trying to teach children how to write letters or memos, even if you do one online, there's a certain protocol. And so this kind of mimics that. Of course, things change. So I'm going to read this few pages. August 27th, 1935. Dear Uncle Jim, Grandma told us after supper that you want me to come to the city and live with you until things get better. Did she tell you that Papa has been out of work for a long time and no one asked Mama to make dresses anymore? We all cried, even Papa. But then Mama made us laugh with her stories about you were chasing her up trees when you were both little. Did you really do that? I'm small but strong, and I'll help you all I can. However, Grandma said to finish my schoolwork before doing anything else. Your niece, Lydia Grace Finch. So we have a couple of things going on because a lot of times when we are reading things from a certain time period, our children may not be aware of what life was like. So there are a couple of things that are going on here. First of all, we have a grandmother, a father and mother, and a daughter. So we have three generations in one house. Father is out of work. We don't know what he does at this time. But did you hear that line? Let's see if I can find it. Papa has been out of work for a long time, and no one asked Mama to make dresses anymore. So this is a time period where obviously there wasn't a lot of access to store-bought dresses, at least not where these people lived. And we have to think about, what did that mean? You know, that people had to have their dresses made, or people made their own clothes. That is so different. When I was growing up, everybody knew how to sew. And I'm going to do a shout out to my cousin Janice, because she's in Ohio and she used to sew. I don't know if she still does, but she could sew up something in an hour or two. I used to sew clothes, my grandmother. I used to take classes with my mother's mother at my father's community college, and I used to sew skirts for myself, jumpsuits, everything. But people really don't sew anymore. I think we're going back to that. But right now, it's cheaper to buy her clothes. So that tells you about the time period. And we have a picture of her here with her grandmother packing up, and we see right here on the desk her writing the letter. She probably wrote in cursive, but this is typed out. So in the book, this whole format goes like this. So she goes to the train station. So it says, September 3rd, 1935. Dear Uncle Jim, I'm mailing this from the train station. I forgot to tell you in the last letter 3 important things that I'm too shy to say to your face. 1, I know a lot about gardening, but nothing about baking. 2, I'm anxious to learn to bake, but is there any place to plant seeds? And 3, I like to be called Lydia Grace, just like Grandma. Your niece, Lydia Grace Finch. Now, I love this picture, because that's how most people got from place to place in the 1930s. And there's a whole history of the International Railroad. I mean, I can't even get into that. And I don't think young children necessarily need to know that when they're growing up. But to this day, my parents and I will take historic train rides, and we just went on one last month up in Pennsylvania with some dear friends of ours. So we have the train crossing, and I think, you know, in many cities there's still train crossings, and here in Baltimore County there's a problem, and there was just a train crashing into a truck last month. We have the water tower, we have electric lines, we have the train station, we have the tracks, we have the old cars. So there's a lot that's not being said in this picture. And so she's going to be traveling alone. We don't know how far she traveled. I'm not going to read this page, but we have he's collecting tickets. We see the luggage. We see her by herself. And my father would always tell us that he would travel with his mother from Detroit to Sylacauga to visit her mother before my grandmother moved my great-grandmother to Michigan. And they would be on the train, and once they hit, I believe it was Cincinnati, Ohio, they had to go into the segregated cars. So there's a whole history there. And, you know, Dad still loves trains. So how, you know, why would he still love trains if he went through something like that? And only he can answer that question. But that tells you how much this country has changed. And in this picture, it looks like there are people of different backgrounds who are on the train. And what's interesting, and I don't know what this means, there's a piece of luggage here that's open and letters are falling out. So what does that mean, and what do they say? So you can always expand on the text, and your child can talk about it. Why would you want to do that? You want your child to be able to summarize, analyze, look at things critically, because a key issue to education is teaching your children how to think, learning to do things different ways, problem solving, etc. So she gets to the train station at her destination, and look how different it is from the train station where she started. This is, and it's dark, and it's big, and she's trying to find her uncle, and she's looking up. She's never seen anything quite like this before. There are no words on this page, so this is a good time to stop and say, what do you think is going on here? What do you think she's thinking? And have you and your children talk about that. And here's her uncle. So basically throughout the story, she lives with her uncle, and he owns a bakery, and she helps him in the bakery. He has two people who work for them. I believe they are African American, and then she starts writing letters to her parents and her grandmother. So she learns how to bake, but she can't get the Gardner out of her. And so she goes to the rooftop, and with the help of her new friends and seeds that her grandmother sends her, she starts planting and getting flowers, and people notice her flowers, and she starts selling flowers. And it's just a wonderful book. This is a great picture of her selling her flowers. And by the end of the book, she has transformed the roof of her building into a flower garden. And then something happens. Her father gets a job, and he is now able to support her, and she's going to go back home. So to celebrate, her uncle makes a cake with a lot of flowers. And look, her uncle looks so stern, and he looks stern through the whole book. And there's the two people, the I believe African American couple who works for her uncle, and they're all there, and they have a party. And then she goes home. And of course, this is this big train. And of course, the Native Americans called it the Iron Horse. And you know, there's so much with trains. I mean, we can go on and on about that. And she's got her suitcase, and her uncle's hugging her. And of course, there's no text on this page. And I love the fact there's no text, because you can talk about what it is. And when she gets back home, she's going to start gardening with her grandmother again. And this really speaks to the heart of people, because the Depression was a very difficult time to live through. And it's very hard to send your child to someone else. It's very hard to face the fact I can no longer support my whole family. And I think a lot of Americans have been through difficult financial times over the last 5 to 7 years and have had to make difficult decisions. But one thing I have learned is that no matter how hard things get, if you stay positive, things will eventually get better, even if it's difficult. And there's a saying that says, bloom where you're planted. So even though this young girl had to go to a totally different atmosphere, live away from her family and her parents, she never stopped being who she was. She's always kept planting flowers. And I think that's one thing that we have to do. We always, no matter who we are, we have to stay true to the essence of who we are. And you have to teach, or I think you have to teach your children that, especially as children grow older and there's so much peer pressure. And, you know, if you're a little bit different or whatever is going on when they're going through middle school, to try to stay true to yourself. And that's why it's, you know, having that strong relationship with your children is so important, because we all face difficulties. So I highly recommend this book. Once again, it's by Sarah Stewart and David Small. I'm sure both of them have websites and information, so you can find out more about the author and the illustrator. And Miss Stewart has written several books. I think I have one by her called The Librarian. So you know I love that one, right? So I strongly advise that you can get this book at your local bookstore or online. You can definitely purchase it. But you know my favorite spot for a book, right? You got it, the public library. So check this book out. Great book. It's a way of looking at history from a very personal perspective, and so many things that you can share with your child. Have a great day, and hey, next time you want to go somewhere, consider the train. I know I've been on the train halfway across the country. It's been a while, but it was a great ride. Take care.